I'm from Canada. It's really warm from me right now because when I just left home, which was Toby, how long ago did I get here? Not long ago. I was like, we just had 3 feet of snow and I was getting another 2 feet of snow, which was really, really bad. And you're the first group who's gonna get to see me with my new glasses. But I will be clothed, so that's the best thing. That's the best thing for everybody. I'll tell you something though. I have these 2 girls. They're my twin daughters. They're 7. And come on, ladies. Somebody go. There we go. There we go. We got it going. All right. Anyways, and I'll tell you something I learned about kids recently. So, I had a birthday, and my wife. I got to do this right. She's from outside Grimsby. I don't know why I have to say that, but apparently you guys know why. Okay. Anyways, so she was taking me away for my birthday, and my 2 little ones cook with me, and they're 7. So they were sitting there and they were cutting a cucumber because giving them fire or a knife is probably not good parenting, right? Probably not. Whatever. But the best part about it was Marley. She says, "Poppy, you're going away?" I said, yeah. Mommy's taking Poppy away for his birthday. And they were going to Miss Sylvia's house, right? Like an overnight, which was just, so they really couldn't care whether I was going to be around. And she goes, "Why?" Because we don't go away. And so it was Poppy's birthday. And she thought about it. Now Dex is the quiet one. She doesn't say much. She's the thinker. She was cutting a cucumber with a plastic knife. And she says, "Poppy, how old are you going to be?" And I said, "Oh, Poppy's going to be old." Right? Marley gets wise and she says, "Poppy, are you going to be 5? Which was, just fantastic for a moment. And I went, "No, baby, Poppy's older than 5. At the time, I was taking these very glasses out, doing what I'm doing right now, thinking I got to put these on in front of these 2 little monsters. And then she goes, "Poppy, are you 7? And I said, "No, baby, Poppy's older than 7. And then she says, "Poppy, are you 9? Meanwhile, Dex is cutting a cucumber, and every cut, Marley takes the cucumber and eats it, right? Like, there's no pile whatsoever. And so the next thing that happens is she thinks about it. And I think we've reached the limit of her mathematical ability because she goes, "Poppy, are you 20-teen?" And I thought about it. I'm older than 20-teen. If I take 20 and I put a teen in there, I'm older than that. And so I actually looked at my daughter and I said, "Sweetheart, no, Poppy is older than 20-teen. And just as I said it, she goes, "Poppy, how old are you?" I said, "Poppy's turning 50. And the one who's quiet dropped her knife, dropped the cucumber, and went, "Holy, I've never even heard of that number." Does anybody have kids? They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. So anyways, actually my name is Yves Crayer. I'm an RN. I've done a myriad of things, including infection control, with a specialty in infrastructure design of healthcare facilities, and also new emerging diseases and infections. That's all you really need to know. And everybody here is? You're at a conference on a day off. You could be back in the office, and that really does not suck, or isn't the greatest. I also work for Datix. Some of you may know us through this software. So the company is now merged. There was one company called Datix. Some of you have the RIS software. And RL, we have our own in North America, but RL also had a product called Infection Surveillance. And now that the company's merged, I'm doing a roadshow. My job today is not to sell you. And I do mean that, because I come to you as a colleague. And I think that's evident. By the way, we just got to get through these corporate slides, okay? And we'll get to the interesting stuff in a minute. To come and say something, and actually, I got to say something. One of the things I like to do is try to find appreciation in things. I just had a half-hour conversation with Shirley. Shirley, stand up, please. Please stand up, Shirley. Does anybody know Shirley? No? Shirley, do you want to introduce yourself? Okay, I'll introduce Shirley. Shirley is an RN. Shirley teaches at the University of Birmingham. She teaches baby nurses, which all us senior nurses like to eat, right? So, but in that conversation, one of the things that came up is the similarities on my side of the pond and on your side of the pond, right? And one of the things that you find in healthcare, we're socialized healthcare, you're socialized healthcare. And I'm standing right in front of you, aren't I? No? That's probably better looking than I am. So one of the things that we're all being asked for is you got to do more with, well, some of you guys are getting the same thing. Anyways, so one of the things we're looking at is doing clinical risk surveillance. And that's one of the things that we're developing as our other vendors. But I want to talk to you actually about the value that you have in clinical risk surveillance as either an AMS pharmacist or an infection control practitioner, a risk manager, because there are a few here, and also the symbiosis that occurs between those two groups, because when we come together, we're way, way more powerful to our executives. So some of the things that happen on a regular basis that you don't think about, that you do, can have an enormous impact, but I'm proposing maybe a different way of looking at things, a different way of you addressing the power that you hold, the things that you do every day. And sorry, I get emotional. I look like a gorilla, but I'm a bit emotional. When I look at you guys, I see the people who stand on the front line. So anyways, that's me. And I still don't look good in that picture, but that's the way it goes. I usually wear a lot of plaid, by the way. Some people come in, let me try. Speak up. Am I too low? Oh, I'm sorry. I think these people are next to death. Sorry about that. So Jamie's asked me to speak up. Anyways, I'm going to give you a quick one here. As we talk about this, what we're looking at, obviously, are the things that happen globally to you and to your colleagues globally. These are outbreaks. And in the background that we currently have of nCoV, we forget those things, right? Many of these things go on to become healthcare-acquired infections, nosocomial infections, or even outbreaks that are regional or local. But every day, I know you guys and ladies are stepping into that. And I understand exactly what it is you step into. You step into the unknown, you step into responsibility, you step into taking on the role to fix that. And that's pretty incredible. And I think, as you sit here, I'm gonna move this, because I feel like can I move this? Yeah, I'm gonna just do it anyways. As I stand here and I talk to you guys, I'm always impressed no matter where I go, because it's the same type of person. It's somebody who's willing to take on that challenge. It's somebody who's got a little bit more to give, and somebody who's willing to tackle this. So as I begin this, I just want to say thank you guys. Because your house is my house, and I think nCoV has just proven that. As did monkeypox last year, as you guys had some monkeypox, I believe, here. Was it 2 institutions? Two separate institutions, if I remember right, yeah? Okay. So, risk management teams, on the other hand, are usually come in afterward, right? The risk management team is the one you hand the report off to. If there's any type of litigation or there's an investigation, they're there having a conversation with you. So my proposal is, how much more powerful are you? How much more powerful are you when instead of being 2 separate departments, you unify those departments and you present that information in real time? The data, who uses real-time data all the time? Nobody? Nobody looks at any clinical data. Well, put up your hands for me. Let me see. Right? So that's the vast majority of this room is using real-time clinical data. How many people have ever had to do a risk report in this place? Just one? Right? Right. So let's look at a risk report. A risk report is an archival event recorder, right? Something bad has to happen, somebody has to notice, somebody has to write it down, then maybe somebody will take a look at those in a few months, aggregate the data, and then they'll come up with a hypothesis, and generally it gets submitted. And how many times that submission actually ends up in a zero-sum result? Quite often. So in our current situation, you got the twins of infectious diseases. So you've got the new one. So that's the new threat. So nCoV would be one. That's the one that we're currently dealing with. This slide deck I had to change because it had a lot of projections in it, and nCoV's kind of come along, and so it's actually here now, right? Because we've all been saying it's coming, it's coming. Well, it looks as though it's here currently, right? So these are the pandemic threats. How many people, anybody here believe nCoV is going to go endemic? You're the specialist. Come on, what's that? Straight to the executive suite you're going. Yeah, there you go. Is anybody willing to say, I feel it might, based on the information? Yeah. And what's your rationale? You're amongst friends. We all know each other intimately.
We've taken people and flown them out of one country into another, albeit to be isolated, but we are taking people that we know have been exposed and moving them to other countries.
Therefore, breaching with the whole principle of quarantine in the first place, really, right? Any other thoughts from anybody? So when I ask a question, I'm going to stand here until someone has a thought. Gentleman over there just touched his face. I just saw you. You look like you might know. Got something going? No? Nobody? Toby, where'd Toby go? Oh, Jamie, have you got any thoughts on this?
What was the question?
Who went to school with him, right? Everybody remembers that guy. Anyways. But I mean, if we look at these things, these are the things that are frightening the people that we work with. These are the things that are frightening the public. These are the things that frighten us a little bit in the core. But the truth of the matter is, and having worked in, has anybody worked in Africa at all? Yeah. How many things do you worry about in Africa? Yeah, that's the list. It's just a lot, right? When you're in Africa, right? But so we're seeing stuff and we're going, wow, that's really frightening, and we're getting really worried. But the truth of the matter is, it's the second twin. It's the second twin that is killing our patients, that are killing the people in our cultures and our societies. Anybody know how many people? Does anybody know if you guys still have your measles status, measles-free status yet? No? You've lost your measles-free status? Yeah. The only reason the U.S. hasn't lost its measles-free status is just because of Trump, really, to be quite frank with you, right? I can tell you back home in Canada, we have a problem with that right now, and we knew it was coming. Does anybody know why measles is so critical a disease to see on the rise? Has anybody done any specialty reading or research into measles? It's a canary disease, right? Because of the R0 factor associated with measles, once you see measles starting to propagate exponentially within a population, and because it's tied to childhood vaccines, it lets you know that other things are coming. And we're starting to see those things. We're starting to see mumps, we're starting to see rubella. All those diseases are coming back, right? And it's a horrible thing to see these things because tuberculosis, we know about. STDs, well, now there's drug-resistant gonorrhea. That's just running rampant, showing up everywhere. No pun intended on that one either. MRSA, VRE, ESBLs, all these things are like really ramping up. And when we get in a situation where we currently are, and you have, for instance, the walking well, or the walking worried coming to your ED department because somebody down the street was in China, now you're getting all that bioburden from your communities coming in, right? It's hitting your hospital. And in a few short weeks, that bioburden will be reflective in things like MRSA counts, VREs, ESBLs, CDIs, because they'll be going to clinics. They'll be coming to Emerge, right? Anybody ever work Emerge? Yeah? It's a clean place, isn't it? It's a wonderful place, yeah. We also have other things, the unknown unknowns, right? So in this this quote actually comes from a study, and I found this a couple of weeks ago actually online. It was really, really interesting. It was my stepdaughter, she was actually talking about climate change, and we were doing a project, and I stumbled over this in my feed. And basically, so 10 Celsius, which is 50 Fahrenheit, roughly. Anybody do the conversion for me? No? Okay. Okay, I cheated, all right? Toby's gonna tell me. I actually did the conversion right outside the door with Google. But a 10 a 10 Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit increase in temperature actually showed up as a 4.2 and a 2.2 and a 2.7% increase in pathogens developing resistance. And those were respective for Escherichia coli, Klebsiella pneumoniae, and Staph aureus. Now that association also looks like it's propagating out to other things. So as we get those increase in temperatures, it's affecting those bugs. They're becoming more. So in the case of carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, you're seeing a faster transmission of the plasmid. So if you have that plasmid, then it's going over to Serratia, and it seems to be that it's causing a lot more problem in the United States and Canada. I don't know if you guys are seeing that yet, but we're seeing that a lot in our special care nurseries, and it's having quite a mortality rate increase in our special care groups. Oh, there's the CRE one. So for carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, in 2001, it started out in New York State. The only reason these two states don't have it is they don't report. But otherwise, that whole map is blue. And they're starting to see a lot of the associated complications of that. So it's also hospital acquired. It's not in the community as much. They haven't been able to show that those who are colonized in the community move to an infection at the same rate as a hospital acquired colonized patient moves to an infection. And obviously that's because they're immunocompromised, right? So that makes a big difference when you want to start doing things like dialysis, right? Because once you put one of them in, that whole machine, the sterilizer, everything's got to be just taken right out of commission. And I can't testify to your rates of hemodialysis, but I think they're probably commensurate with ours, and that means they're probably just going up with the increase in population. Would I be right in that? Hello? Am I in here by myself? I'm in here by myself. So, again, as the evolving of these pathogens continues, it's bringing ever increasing challenges. How many teams in hospitals here have enough staff for what they do? You answered that question, but you left me hanging on the other ones. You can't leave a guy hanging up here, man. It's unbelievable. All right. Anyways. So having said that, your caseloads are increasing, right? Line tracings. How much time do you dedicate now to a line tracing event compared to 5 years ago?
What do you mean by line tracing?
So, sorry, maybe I'm not. Maybe you call them outbreak tracings or something. So we do have a crossover. We call them line tracings. So, like, if you've got somebody who's got a HAI, and you want to show the pattern of where they've been in your facility and cross over with other patients.
Oh, yeah.
What do you call that? Really, so you guys making it difficult. Jeez. You invented the damn language, and we're just turning it into crap over there in Canada. So we call those line tracings. You know what? Note to self, line tracing is now contact tracing. I'll change that. So are you spending more time doing that?
Yeah.
How much more? Like, would you say 25%? 50%? You're doing twice as much. Yeah. So the only constant you can actually be sure of in this whole thing is it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better, right? So, and then you have from volume-based, even though you're dealing with volume, and this statement, although it's from a US administrator, actually applies. I hear it echoed by many of the people within the NHS and other healthcare systems, also within our FAC or our federal system as well. And essentially what it means is we're going to move from a volume-based care system to one of quality and value-based payments, right? So your remuneration for your institution, your CFO, your CEO, they're going to get that. But my question is, how are you going to do that when your volumes are going up and you've got less to do more with, right? It sounds really, really good, but does it sound good to the people doing the job? You guys are doing the job. Does it sound good? Okay. So then we look at infection risk management. And this is where we get into that synergy. This is where we get into the things that can be done from one department working with the other. And you probably already do a lot of these things. So using risk management concepts, which you already probably do, you may call them something else. For instance, contact tracing? Was that it? Contact tracing, right? Contact tracing, right? You just have the same goals. So identifying like a hazardous practice or hazardous situation, I mean, that's within your domain, correct? Okay. Preventative measures. Anybody ever told that costs too much or that's a lot of cost? Do you feel the pressure for something you want to implement? Right? But you still have to raise that up to the powers that be so that you can effectively do better care, right? And that's where you kind of get into that little imbalance, right? And then you want to intervene and you want to focus on preventing those infections instead of responding to the infections, right? So the risk identification piece is something that you do, and you do really, really well. Does anybody not know what the risks are in their facility? No? Everybody's got a good idea? Everybody's got that one thing that drives them nuts that they're just like, please don't let the director come in and ask me about this. Yeah? Yeah. So, there's one. What are we doing that's resulting in transmission? Right? Those are discussions that you have amongst yourselves very often, right? It might go to a leader in a conversation, but are you clearly delineating some of that stuff, right? How frequently things are being identified, right? So you've identified that risk, now you want to say how frequently this is happening. What's the consequences? So do you know most of the time what the consequences are? Or do you just vaguely go, well, we could have an outbreak of something? Or do you actually put that in writing? Do you take that with a risk manager and actually surface that to some of your executives? Cost. Does anybody work with finance in this room? Yeah, on a regular basis? That's awesome. That's really, really good. Usually everybody goes no when I do this talk. So how closely do you work with finance?
We have monthly budget meetings with our divisional finance and manager.
Awesome.
We have to go through our budget item by item.
Wow. Everybody got to do that? No.
Just us them in our cash wrap.
Your job sucks. Oh my God, it's so bad. No. The reality is that it makes you really fiscally aware. So can you tell me right now off the top of your head, what are the two most important things for your team with your CFO?
Reduce the amount of agency nurses.
Oh, that's one. She said that really quick. Okay. Anything else? She's incredibly quiet. What's that? I don't bite. Well, I do, but.
It's all about, it's always staffing. It's always coming down staffing.
Yeah.
And working.
Does anybody else have that pressure? So did anybody here? Reducing the amount of agency nurses being utilized. Is that like something you hear from your CFO? Yeah? What about getting people out of isolation? Like doing a flip over in isolation. Do you ever get that pressure? Not from finance. Okay, but that's a qualifier. Not from finance means who what?
Bed management.
That comes from bed management. Okay. Anybody else tell me what their CFO is really concerned about? Aside from money. I mean, that's what they live for. No? Does anybody know the name of their, you guys aren't allowed to ask, anybody know the name of their CFO? Really? So they're pretty powerful and they do have their wants, but I would submit that knowing what your CFO wants should be a priority. So like when I do my other role, if I walk in and we're talking with a potential prospect client, my first thing is, tell me what your CEO wants, tell me what your CFO wants, and give me your top 10 to 15 reports. And the reason I do that is because if I keep them happy, I take away their pain, right? They don't want their pain back once you get rid of it, ever, which makes you really, really powerful, because when you're saying I'm unhappy, I'm not satisfied, my department is suffering, they're hearing you, but they're thinking about their pain. And since you've taken away their pain, they don't want that pain coming back, right? And that's where you use, will we face similar risks? All right, little behavioral psychology there. You tell the CFO, well, it's very much like this situation, and then you can lobby to get these other either resources, enforcements, collaborations from other team members. I mean, it sounds bad, and it's well, I was gonna say it's manipulation, and that sounds bad. It's not, it's necessary, right? We have to address these people where they feel discomfort because they have all these other things going on, like he's got to run things. This also applies to your CEO. So, having said all the bad news, we also know that antibiotics are basically coming. Anybody know when the next new novel antibiotic comes online? Anybody in pharmacy here? No pharmacists, sir? Floor is yours. When's the next new novel antibiotic? Nobody knows. Yeah, that's frightening. That's absolutely frightening. One of the things that I heard recently was that in the States, they're starting to play with phage. Anybody know anything about phage? Yeah, so that's becoming one of the things that they're actually seriously talking about. Problem is, building a phage library is really complex, and it takes a lot of work. Believe it or not, the Russians, actually not the Russians, sorry, because now it's not the Russians, but the Georgians, they actually have a hospital in Georgia that's a phage hospital. And the reason the US is involved is because US police who get like MRSA infections and bone surgeries after being shot have been sent quietly over there where they get phage therapy, and apparently their success rate is incredible. Like these are infections where they should have lost their limbs. So they're starting like, the problem is it's really hard to monetize phage. So again, we were looking at this, our risk factors. So I made it easy. So the duration of stay, socioeconomic status, that plays a huge role. I understand, like us, you see a huge influx of new refugees, right? So they don't have any tertiary medical care generally by the time they get here, let alone immunizations. I just saw the other day they had wild polio show up in Syria. So obviously their admission diagnosis, what they're in for. Anybody else want to give me another? Anybody want to give me another risk factor for these people getting an HAI, going septic?
Frailty?
Sorry, frailty? Yeah. Predisposing conditions on entry? Exactly. Yeah. Nutrition. Who eats well in this room? Well, obviously I do. I eat anything that doesn't move fast enough. Organizational, so cleanliness, another group that you're obviously probably lobbying for. A lot of times you have to get on them, but like your housekeeping or environmental facilities group, again, they don't usually have a voice. On the other hand, if you're doing your infection control program with an eye toward risk, and you bring that to the risk manager, you're now giving them a voice, right? So in Toronto, where I'm from, which is cold and snowy, not all the time, but a lot of the time, I was at the hospital that got the second wave of SARS. And what ended up happening there was this really, really brilliant nurse, Arla Tomczyk. She basically went and sat downstairs with our engineering environmental group. And she learned HVAC system airflow. And we have a standard called CSA Z8000. Not that it applies to you guys, because you have your own standard. But she learned it inside out. She walked in, and she showed that that second wave was a direct result of not putting the infrastructure in place. And then out of that, she actually went back and looked at some samples and had some TB typed and was showing that our emerge was actually pushing airflow into an oncology area, and that some of the TB, drug-resistant TB that we'd seen was showing up down the hallway, which resulted 2 years later in an air unit, which is basically a level 3 containment unit in a community hospital. She's absolutely brilliant. She hates my guts. Just because I took her job. No, she retired and I took over. But she taught me, and she's really, really smart. But she did that through a risk lens. And that's one of those things, because you're much more powerful, you get more things when you're doing it. Iatrogenic, so your hand hygiene compliance, your staff are actually doing it, right? Does everybody believe their current hand hygiene rates? I love that question, because it's the same all over the planet, really, right? your background infection rate, and invasive procedures that you're doing, right? Your risk controls. So I'm going to speed up a little bit here. And I'm here to talk if anybody wants to talk afterward, right? So you want to identify those risks, obviously, which we've been talking about. And you want to make sure that those things are evident through a risk reduction plan. These are things that you already do. Pretty much what your job is, let's get rid of that risk, but pass it over to the risk manager and write it in the risk language. You want to eliminate the risk where it's possible, right? You want to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. This is always the thing that I find to be probably the least acceptable. This is the second least acceptable. Right now we're seeing that with scope, endoscope cleaning. Third parties are coming in and saying, hey, we can do this, but it doesn't get you away from that actual obligation and your legal obligations, even if you do that. You can accept the risk for the short term, and I think that's SOP for most facilities. You probably have a whole list of risks that you're thinking about just as I'm sitting here talking, and you're like, yeah, that's been going on for a while. And it only gets attention once that for a while comes into today, and then you end up getting bad outcomes, right? But then you have your ongoing risk monitoring. And that's, again, a risk control. That's exactly what you guys do, right? You just don't have the power of that voice. So recruit that voice and show them how you can bring it in. I do this also for risk managers as well, and for legal groups. So this is one of my favorite cartoons, and it just sums up my day on the average time when I was working on units and stuff. I thought I had something, and then I was like, I got no idea what I'm doing, honest to God, from 1 minute to the next. Because somebody will come in and tell you something that changes the game. Your legal responsibility regardless. It gets mitigated as soon as you do that risk identification and assessment, but it also leaves you in a really bad position for liability. If you don't take it to the next step, which is also showing that you've done the analysis, that analysis should be documented and pushed forward again to the risk team. It's not that you're getting rid of your responsibility, but you're passing it through the system, right? Risk controls, obviously there are things that are implemented by a unit more often than not, but it's still overseen and regulated usually by an infection control team and a prevention team, right? So you have to make sure you stay on that. And then monitoring and reporting. Essentially, this is governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC, right? Which is a big idea in healthcare. And then for today and tomorrow, the boogeymen are going to keep coming, right? And we know that. We already know that nCoV right now, as it stands, looks like it's had some antigenic drift from what I understand today. There was a paper out on that. There's a family, I believe, in Singapore, and it looks like there's been some drift there, and it may become more virulent, right? We also know this, right? This is something that you deal with every day. Like, how many things do you actually do? Toby, my colleague, I actually sent him the APIC guide for a novice practitioner of infection control. What did you think of that read? Yeah. So he's new to meet you people, so please, wave. Go up and talk to him. God, I got to talk to him all day. Tell him that like the stuff I'm saying is not crap. Like you guys do a lot of stuff. It's unbelievable. I need some testimony. Right? And then again, as I say, pretty much you guys are it. And you need a bigger voice. And that voice really should be tied into a colleague, and that colleague is your risk and quality people. But you have all the science, you have all that training, the stuff that your risk people don't and your quality people don't. You have the empiric data. And when it comes to the data, you have vendor partners. This is not the sell from me. So we have something called, and this is one of the things that we came up with because we have clinical people work with our software. And our difference is AI, all those things, they're great, but unless they can give you an answer fast or even just give you an idea that something's going to happen, right? Like what are your background rates? Does anybody know the background rate that in their facility for influenza-like illness from month to month? You do? Brilliant. Brilliant. Share with your colleagues, because that's one of the things that would definitely catch at this moment. You don't got to know that it's MERS-CoV. You don't got to know that it's RSV, right? You just got to know that your background rate has just had a sudden breach, and that'll send your teams out to do that risk mitigation. That'll send your teams to go out and do those infectious disease investigations that are so critically important. And I'm not asking you to do more. I'm just asking you, as your colleague, to think about the way you apply your skills, because they're badly needed for our patients and for the public, and you guys do amazing work. So that's it for me.